The Bible is filled with many stories that give us lessons with regards to life. While these stories are often captivating, we must appreciate certain characters whose efforts made a significant difference in the lives of those around them. Specifically, there are certain women in the Bible who did remarkable things but are rarely mentioned or spoken about. Some of their names are not mentioned at all, yet they played pivotal roles in redeeming nations or impacting the lives of kings. In today's video, we'll be looking at the women who did great things but are rarely spoken about. Number 1. Jael. Not very many people know about this bold, remarkable woman. Her husband, Heber, was a distant relative of Moses. He was a Kenite, but he moved to Zanaim. There, he lived with his family amongst the Hazarites, who welcomed him warmly. At that time, the Israelites had sinned against God, and he handed them over to the king Jabin of Canaan. King Jabin greatly oppressed them, and they cried out to God for mercy. God heard their prayers and appointed a vibrant young man named Barak to lead them into victory through Deborah the judge. Under Barak's leadership, the Israelites pursued the Canaanites and killed them all. Sisera, their commander, had fled on foot and found himself outside Jael's tent. She ran out to meet Sisera, and she asked him to come in and hide in her tent. Because he was desperate, he agreed and went in. Immediately, Jael covered him with a blanket. He asked her for some water to drink. She instead brought him a jug of milk, and he drank it. He then instructed her to stand at the door and deny if anyone asks her if she's seen him. He then fell asleep, and that is when Jael pounced on him with a peg and a hammer. She drove the peg through Sisera's temple, killing him instantly. As Barak approached her tent, she quickly went out to meet him and showed him Sisera's body. And on that day, Israel subdued King Jabin and his kingdom. While many people praise Jael for her bravery, others feel that she shouldn't have betrayed someone who genuinely sought help from her. What do you think she should have done? Let me know in the comments section below. Number 2. Tabitha Dorcas. She was a disciple who was very kind and generous, especially to the needy in society. It is only when she died that people came out to say what she had done for them in secret. She had died from an unknown illness, and the women washed her body and laid her in an upper room. Tabitha's fellow disciples sent 2 men to Lydda to find Peter so they could tell him what had transpired and to ask him to come back to Joppa with them. Peter came back with them and met widows weeping, showing him the beautiful tunics and clothes that Tabitha had sewn for them when she was still alive. Peter took those garments, knelt on them, and prayed to God. He then turned to Tabitha's body and commanded her to rise up, and she came back to life immediately. She was such a selfless lady, and I'd like to believe that her charitable deeds touched God, and that's why he allowed her to come back to life. Number 3. Naaman's wife's maid. Naaman was the commander of the army of the king of Syria. He was a mighty man of valor, but he suffered from an incurable disease at the time, leprosy. In one of their raids, they had captured a little girl from Israel who came and worked as the maid to Naaman's wife. When the girl saw just how much Naaman was suffering from the disease, she recommended to her mistress that he should go to Samaria to see a prophet who could heal him from the disease. At this point, Naaman was willing to try anything, so he went to the king of Syria and told him what the little girl had said. The king released him with a letter to the king of Israel so that they wouldn't think he was there for war. Long story short, Naaman went to Samaria and received his healing from prophet Elisha, whom the girl had recommended. The girl's name is not even mentioned in the Bible, but if it was not for her, Naaman would have died, and his story ended abruptly. Number 4. Abigail. Before Abigail became King David's wife, she was married to a wealthy man named Nabal. Nabal was a harsh and evil man. At some point, King David had sent a message of peace to Nabal, asking him to show kindness to his servants as he had shown his. Nabal was so rude to the men King David sent, and it displeased him greatly. Meanwhile, one of Nabal's workers told Abigail what had transpired. He told her how good King David's men were to them, and advised her to find a way to salvage the situation. given that her husband was a difficult man to reason with. He also warned her that danger may be coming their way due to her husband's response to King David's men. Abigail, being the reasonable one in the marriage, hastened to take gifts and sent her servants ahead, telling them that she will follow behind. While she was en route to King David, she met him and immediately dismounted the donkey and knelt before him. She pleaded on her foolish husband's behalf and pleaded with the king to let God repay her husband instead of taking the matters into his own hands. King David accepted her gifts and advice and returned to his palace. Just as Abigail had spoken, God struck Nabal 10 days later, and he died. King David was so amazed by Abigail's humility and intellect that he married her once her husband died. Abigail literally saved all the males in their home because King David was intent on killing them all in order to cut off Nabal's lineage. Intelligence, humility, and wisdom is what made Abigail a remarkable woman. Number 5. Jochebed. She was the mother of Miriam, Moses, and Aaron. Her name means Yahweh is glory, and she is the first person in the entire Bible with a name that includes the divine element, Yah. She was also her husband's aunt, but that's another story for another day. She is a remarkable woman because she defied Pharaoh's orders to have all newborn sons killed by drowning in the river Nile. Jochebed was the daughter of Levi, which meant she was one of the Israelite slaves in Egypt. She carefully put Moses in a basket and floated him on the river, hoping that someone would see him and take him. Luckily, Pharaoh's daughter was on the other side of the river, and she saw the baby floating. She was so taken by Moses that she took him back to her father's palace to raise him there. Little did Pharaoh know that the supposed enemy he sought was being raised in his own courts. And to make things sweeter, Jochebed was hired to raise Moses in Pharaoh's court, and no one knew she was his biological mother. She was a remarkable woman because she knew what was at stake if she ever got caught, and yet she dared defy Pharaoh's orders. Because of her bravery, God rescued Israel through her son Moses. The women we've mentioned in today's video are some of the most remarkable women known in the Bible, but they were rarely mentioned, despite their significant contributions. If you'd like to know 5 ways to immediately identify false prophets, click on the link at the end of this video. And if you found any value in this video, please hit the subscribe button so you can get more of these videos. That's all for today. See you on the next video.